Hey guys, welcome to episode number 561. Today is Monday, so it's Update Monday, and today we are spending the entire day with the turtles and the stock tank. I know a lot of you guys have wanted to see an update on the turtles. Where are the turtles? How are they doing? How big are they? Let's see the tank. Well, this is your day. Every 6 months or so, I like to break down, clean, inspect all of the turtles, and then rebuild the stock tank. Turtles are pretty dirty, so every once in a while it just has to be done. But before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you want to help support this channel, you can go check out myaquariumbox.com. Anyways guys, let's get working on this stock tank. Let's take a look at these turtles. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist.
This stock tank is a mess, and part of the reason why is because of these floating plants. Now, I wanted to try to save these things. I brought them indoors a few weeks ago when it started getting too cold out in the greenhouse, and as you can see, and like I knew would happen, they've started to yellow and brown and shrivel up and die. And most of that is due to the fact that the lights are not quite strong enough to keep them alive. These lights are T5 high outputs. There actually are grow lights, but the bulbs are probably 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. They definitely need to be changed, and they would probably need to be lowered quite a bit closer to the water in order to keep something like this alive. Water lettuce, water hyacinth is notoriously difficult to keep alive indoors. It does great under natural sunlight, but it's just tough to keep alive indoors. So anyways, I'm not sad to see it go, but it does need to happen. So the first thing we're going to do is remove all of these floating plants. And the main reason I don't want to continue to keep them in here is because if you look at this overflow screen here, you can see all of the root matter and the leaf matter is getting caked on top of this overflow, and that's preventing water from going through it, which means we could end up eventually having a flood one night if these plants don't get removed. So let's get these out of the way. Let's get looking at the sand bed and start cleaning that up. We got a lot of vacuuming of mulm and dead roots and dead plant matter. We got to get all of that out of the way before we can start putting this thing back together. So let's get to work. So while we wait for this algae mess to die down, I thought we'd take a look at the filter. Now, this is sort of a work in progress. I'm still not 100% happy with this filter, but essentially what we have here is an overflow going into a milk crate which has Matala mats in it, which allows the water to sort of trickle down into the barrel itself. We got the return pump over here, all the way on the bottom, and we've got our fresh water line in, dripping, and we've got a large overflow over there going to our wastewater sump on the other side of the fish room. Anyways, these filter pads get clogged up after less than a week, I would say. So these things I have to basically change constantly. And I do have a piece of foam underneath, which lasts a lot longer. And then I never really touch the Matala because everything gets clogged up in here. Now, I know people in the past have suggested starting with the large pores and going all the way down to the small pores. That would mean putting these on the very bottom that would be extremely difficult to change. So what I opt to do instead is just put them on the top and grab them real quick, and every week or two change them out. I might move to more of just a sponge only type system. I just need to find the right kind of sponge, maybe a couple different layers of sponge, so that I can trap quite a bit of debris in there. Just pick the giant pieces of sponge out and wring those out in the sink every once in a while. But anyways, this is a mess. We got to change these out, and then we're going to wait probably I don't know, 15-20 minutes for all of this to die down. It'll get caught in our filter here, and then I can continue on with siphoning the tank. Alright guys, and while we wait for the water to calm down a little bit and clear up, I thought it would be a good idea to catch all of my southern black knob map turtles that are in this 300-gallon stock tank so we can take a look at them. Now, they are very displeased to have been captured in this manner. They don't get handled a whole lot. They are very secretive turtles. They like to hide. They don't like hanging out with people. I have had turtles in the past that are much more personable. These ones just like to hide the second I come down the stairs. So they are difficult to get on camera. But what I wanted to do was very briefly look at all these guys, look them over, make sure they're in good shape before we continue on with this project. Now, these turtles are all, I believe, either 2 or 3 years old. I had 2 batches of them that I purchased at different times, a year apart. And this one right here, the first one that we're looking at, I believe this is the largest one. This is a female. And as we can see, it's got a nice shell. The black knob map turtle, the name comes from the black knobs on the top of the shell. And then you can see the pattern on the shell looks kind of like a map, like a geographic map. It's got different lines on each of the scutes. So a couple different things that I like to look for when I pick these guys up and inspect them is just to make sure that they're shedding really well, that they don't have any excess scutes that are sticking around on the tops of the shells. This one looks pretty good, maybe a little bit on the edges, but nothing too major. If you do notice anything that looks like it's about to come off, you can help it come off, but it will come off naturally just when they bask and whatnot. Underneath, it does look like we have some areas of slight damage. I believe this is actually one of the ones that I got as a juvenile, and it did have, I remember when I got them, they did have some blemishes on the bottoms of the shell, so that might be what this is from. But otherwise, in good shape. Oftentimes, if your turtle is not basking enough, you can see some shell rot potentially start to develop, and it usually does develop on the bottoms of the shells, at least from my experience. If you notice anything that's pussy or not really solid like it should be, like if you poke it a little bit and it's soft, that's a bad sign. That means you may have shell rot and you might need to treat for that. But this girl looks great. You can tell she's a female because she's nice and big and round, and she has a very tiny tail. So we're gonna let her go. We have 9 total, and I figured we'd look through the females first because they're a little bit bigger and they're anxious to get out of here. You can see this one's got a much lighter pattern on the shell. Nice lines here on the map turtle shell, and again the black knobs on the top, very pronounced when they're small, but still, even at this size, you can still see them there. So this girl looks pretty good. She's in good shape. One other thing, you can tell it's starting to fade out here because these guys are getting larger, but you can tell the southern black knobs from the northern black knobs. The southerns have like a black pattern on the bottom of the shell, and the northern black knobs, which are a little bit more common, they just have a completely yellow bottom of the shell. So she looks good. She's in good shape. She's got a few scutes here on the back that look like they need to shed a little bit, but that'll come off all by itself. Don't need to worry too much about that. So that's number 2. Pick up another girl here. Again, she's got a little bit of, looks like she's got a little bit of, yeah, some scutes that need to come off here. Looks like they're coming off all by themselves. Oh, one of our males tried to escape. She looks good as well. You can tell when they're alert, they're attentive, they're trying to escape desperately, that they're in pretty good shape. This one you can see does have a split scute here. If you were looking for turtle aesthetics, this is something that you're not looking for, is the split scute. Usually they should all line up like this, but in this case she's got a split right there. But otherwise she's in good health. She looks good. These females are really trying to get away, so I'm trying to go through them as best I can. This one's got a really nice shell, really nice pattern, very pronounced coloration on the top of the shell. Very cool. She looks good. The most important part, in my opinion, when you're checking out your turtles is just to make sure that they're shedding well and that they don't have any signs of shell rot. So that's good. That was female number 4. This is female number 5. We've got 5 females and 4 males total. So here you can see the black pattern on the bottom of the shell. That's the southern. All of these are southern black knobs. She's got a little bit of shedding that needs to happen on here, on the bottom, but not too bad. Top's in pretty good shape. If they are loose, sometimes you can just sort of pick at them a little bit and they'll come off. Don't forcefully rip at them because they might not be ready to come off, but it just happens naturally in the wild. When they bask, they loosen up. When they go back in the water, and you know they repeat that process, they just fall off all on their own. So she looks good. So that's 5 males, and then we have 5 females. Sorry, and then we have 4 males. And the one thing you'll notice right away is that the males stay considerably smaller than the females, and all of these are basically full grown at this point. They might grow a little bit more, but not a whole lot. This guy's got a little bit of algae on the top of his shell. That could be because he's not basking quite enough, or it could just mean he's hanging out in shallow water and it's giving that algae a chance to grow. So what you can do is you can take a pair of those aquarium cleaning gloves that I was using earlier and just rub the shell to get some of that algae off. You can also use a toothbrush if you so choose. Here's a really good example, a really clean example of what the bottoms of these southern black knob map turtles look like. When they're very young, it's even more pronounced, the black and the yellow color on the bottom. And again, if it's a northern, it's just completely yellow. So this guy's in really good shape. The algae doesn't hurt anything, and as those scutes fall off, so does the algae. But it is nice to clean these off once in a while. Every couple months I'll pull them out and give him a good scrub. But he's in great shape. You can tell he's a male because he's got a much larger tail. It's a lot longer, and it's a lot fatter as well. So that's a male. Male number 1, he's going in. We got 3 more males to check out here. This guy might be the smallest of the bunch. And again, some of these were younger, some of these were older by a year. So this guy's probably one of the younger ones. He's looking pretty good. Again, it looks like there's a couple pock marks on the bottom of the shell, but it's nothing to be concerned about as long as it's like healed over. If it's like an open wound, or if it's you know, soft to the touch, that's what you have to worry about. So sometimes these things just happen. The scute just popped right off. One of these ones on the back. So yeah, it's good to give these guys just a quick check. This guy looks good. Nice green coloration on the shell. You can see the face there has nice black and yellow markings. Very attractive turtle. And again, black knobs, black knobs right along the top. So we'll let him go. We got 2 more males to look at here. Here's one of them. Looks good. Looks like he's got a little shedding to do on the top here, but not too bad. Bottom looks great. You can tell they're nice, big, fat, and happy when they got little bulges on their bottom. You don't want them to be too fat. You don't want them to be so fat they can't fit in their shell. And they do eat a lot. But this guy looks good. Put him in. And then last but not least, one more male to take a look at. And this guy is a little bit different in coloration than some of the others. He's more of like an olive green instead of a dark green color. So kind of cool there. And he's got the rings and the map like variations along the top of the shell. Again, he looks like he's in pretty good shape. No signs of shell rot or anything like that. So it's good. It's always good to have turtles that like to bask. The more you can leave them alone, the more they feel comfortable to pull out completely and bask for several hours uninterrupted, the better, because they need that time to completely dry out to prevent issues like that. So this guy looks great. He's in great shape. That's turtle number 9. So 9 black knob map turtles in this 300-gallon tank.
All right, guys, while that tank is settling down and the water is clearing, I thought we would have a little story time. I know everyone likes story time, so I wanted to try to bring it back. Sorry I'm not outside by a fire pit, but it's a little cold and a little rainy outside. Anyways, so here's the story. Last year at the NEC convention, I gave away all of my axolotls. We're coming up on a year. After this winter, it will be a full year that I have not had any axolotls, and I was a little sad to see them go. While I was at the NEC, Jason from San Francisco Bay Brand Ocean Nutrition was talking to me about axolotls, about newts, about salamanders, about frogs, all kinds of stuff that he used to keep growing up. And he mentioned one animal which is very similar to an axolotl, but has a lot of benefits, which could be something that I may get into this coming year. He talked about the Spanish ribbed newt, or the Iberian ribbed newt. It's basically a fully aquatic or almost fully aquatic newt that lives in the water, doesn't need a heater, and is very similar to an axolotl. Now, it doesn't have the gills on the outside, but it does have really good eyesight, unlike axolotls. One of the biggest pet peeves I had, literally, with the axolotls is that it was very difficult to pellet train them because you had to hit them right on the nose. You had to drop a pellet, it had to land right on their nose for them to eat it. Very poor eyesight, so the only thing that they could do was hunt basically by smell. That's why the bloodworms were so good, but as I developed the bloodworm allergy, I just said, nope, this isn't worth it. All the axolotls are going. But I did like them, and I do think I would like Spanish ribbed newts at some point. They're very similar to breed, very easy to breed, cold water species. I've been thinking for a long time about getting into more cold water fish. Now, I've got the pond outside, goldfish, koi, that sort of stuff can live out there. But my aquarium rack system indoors in the basement, I have considered in the past yanking all of the heaters, pulling all of the tropical fish, and converting it into a cold water system. Why? Obviously, it saves a lot of money on electricity. I'm not running aquarium heaters in basically my sump, but to heat all of the aquariums. which would save a considerable amount of money every month. And I think some of the cold water species are a little less appreciated than some of the tropical varieties. Everyone's got the tropical fish, you know, you name it, people have it, but things like Spanish ribbed newts, they've sort of disappeared for most people. I mean, I've never seen a Spanish ribbed newt in an aquarium store in my life. And it seems like, just looking around online, there are only a few breeders who are selling them actively in the United States. Now, they seem like a really cool animal. They get like 8 to 12 inches long, similar to an axolotl. They've got really good eyesight, and they will hunt pellets. By eyesight, they will hunt pellets. So you don't necessarily need to feed them frozen food, don't necessarily need to feed them bloodworms. So it's something that I can keep, and I am seriously considering. Now, why are they called Spanish ribbed newts or Iberian newts? Well, they come from Iberia, Spain, that region of the world. And the rib part is because they are poisonous. Not to humans. I don't think they can actually harm you, but they do have ribs which can stick out of their body. They will force their ribs outside of their body as little spikes which do have poison on them. So if something is trying to eat them, they can protect themselves with poisonous ribs, which is absurd. Like, have you ever heard of that? Have you ever seen that before? That sounds awesome. One reason why I want to try keeping these things. Now, I think even if you like squeezed one, I don't think that the ribs pop out enough, or they're not sharp enough to actually like hurt you, like go through your skin or whatever. I don't think it's like a medical type condition where you would have to go to the hospital or anything like that. They are pretty friendly. You can handle them gently, and I don't think that would ever be an issue, but it is kind of interesting to know and to think about. So, what would I be doing? Well, if this is something I'm truly interested in, there are a couple changes that would need to happen down to the fish room, and this may be something that happens over the course of several years. Who knows? I don't know how long it's going to take to find these things, and I don't know how long it's going to take to convert over to keep them. But a 40-gallon tank, 40-gallon breeder, is a pretty good place to start. I have 8 of those set up already. The biggest thing I would need to do is pull all of the tropical fish and pull all of the heaters so that the temperature in those tanks can drop down to room temperature. In the winter, they'll get cooler. In the summer, they'll get warmer. They can handle it. They're pretty good at handling those temperature fluctuations. The next thing I would need to do is potentially drop the water level in the aquariums by another inch or so to make sure that they can't jump. Obviously, I need to have the twin wall polycarbonate lids on the top, and I would need to provide some way for them to sort of climb up all the way to the surface and sort of hang out in a plant, in sort of like my fake boxwood garland, something like that, where they could feel secure, have access to the surface, to air, and not have to be on the bottom of the tank all the time. But these things don't need a whole lot of water height. So one of the ideas that I had is potentially, at some point, to switch over to the ZooMed 50-gallon lowboy aquariums. These things are pretty cool. I've shot a video on them before. I've had my eye on them for a very long time. I have not picked them up because I do not have any space to put those anywhere. But if I was to reorganize the fish room around Spanish ribbed newts, around other cold water species, it may be the time to potentially retire the 40-gallon breeder rack and convert it into a 50-gallon ZooMed lowboy tank. These things are a lot lower, and I could probably stack 3 of them on top of each other as opposed to the 2 40-gallon tanks that are currently stacked on top of each other. Something to think about. Again, newts, similar to turtles, they need the surface area. We need as much surface area in the tank as we can get, and the Zoo Med lowboy tanks are perfect for that situation. So, Spanish ribbed newts, Iberian ribbed newts in my future, cold water system, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that idea. Again, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I am going to do my research, and it will take some time to happen, if it does happen at all. But I thought it was an interesting idea. I do like salamanders, I do like newts, and if I can get something that's basically fully aquatic and can live in systems that I would otherwise use for fish, I think that's a pretty cool thing to look into. So that's my thought. That's the story time. Thank you, Jason from San Francisco Bay Ocean Nutrition, for giving me that idea. Know that I have been thinking about it for the last year, and now I've just shared it with everyone here. So let me know what you think, and maybe we'll tackle that sometime down the road. Anyways, let's get back to the turtle tank. Alright guys, and it's been about an hour since we cleaned the 300-gallon stock tank. I actually went ahead and vacuumed the entire bottom 3 times, and I think I've gotten most of the stuff off the bottom. Maybe a little bit more, but the turtles will kick it up over time. The rest of the stuff that's been in the water column has gone through the overflow into the filter pad, and the water is starting to get clear enough that we can continue on with this project. Now, we are going to put some Malaysian driftwood back into this tank, and if you guys have noticed, the turtles have been hiding out underneath their basking platform. It's really the only spot which is shaded, protected from view, and they do like their privacy. They do like to feel protected. So one thing we're going to do as we add all of this driftwood back into this tank is try to build them a little bit of a secluded underwater area where they're going to feel safe. I didn't do enough of that in my last scape with the driftwood. I'm going to focus more on that this time to make sure that they have a nice spot where they feel safe and they can go down for the night. Now, you'll also notice I added a string here to help elevate, to hold up this basking platform. This is a really heavy piece of wood, and it wasn't floating enough for my liking. So in order to give the turtles a nicer slope to crawl out and bask, and to also give me some more water space for driftwood underneath that basking platform, I did elevate it a little bit by pulling it up with that string. So let's get working on adding this driftwood. Again, the water is going to continue to clear up. The particulate is going to continue to flow through the filter. It's going to take at least 24 hours for the water to be crystal clear once again, but it's good enough for now. You will notice we do have a small colony of antlers, live bearers swimming around in here. We do have a few other random tetras in here, and we have quite a large population of marbled crayfish as well. I believe I only tossed a couple of those in here, but they are self-cloning, so they are cloning themselves, and there are at least a dozen or so that I've noticed in here. I thought that the turtles would eat them, but that doesn't seem to be the case, so there are more in here than I put in here, which is always nice to see. Anyways, let's get scaping. Alright guys, and here is the finished scape, at least for now. You will notice that
I've created a little bit of a cave-like structure with wood on this side and wood on this side to give them a nice shaded, hidden spot to hang out underneath that basking platform. And I think they've already started to spread out a little bit and explore, which is good. Now, the most important thing when using large pieces of driftwood like this is to make sure that they are very stable. You don't want any of these getting knocked over. The turtles will sometimes wedge themselves next to it in order to sleep. You don't want them to tweak a piece of wood and the whole thing to fall down on another turtle. So this piece is wedged up against the basking platform there and against the bottom over here. We've got sort of a tripod shape with one piece of wood this way, one piece over there, and another piece over here. So this is very stable, and everything has a large entrance. We don't want the turtles swimming through and getting stuck anywhere. So we want to make sure that they've got large holes, large pathways in which to swim so that they don't get confused or stuck in one or more pieces of wood. So I think this looks fine for now. Again, I'm not trying to win an aquascaping award. This is a turtle tank. This is a breeding tank, so I'm just interested in providing them the best habitat that they can. You will notice I also took out all of the rocks. I had some gray cobble rocks in here, cobblestone rocks. Took all of those out. I noticed that a lot of the debris and the stuff on the bottom was getting caught in and around those rocks. So for now, they're out. I may add them again at a later time, but for right now, I just want to try to keep that substrate as clean as possible. All right, so the turtles are in there. The driftwood is in there. I was very careful to work around the turtles as I was putting all of that in there. One thing we do need to address is our lighting. Now, I've been using the Zoomed mercury vapor bulbs for a very long time. You have to replace them every year or so. They provide UVA, UVB, and heat, which is basically the three important things for a turtle basking spot. So this has been set up for as long as the stock tank's been here. The light, again, gets switched out every year or so to make sure that that UVB output is in an acceptable range. But I learned recently that Zoomed has a new light for turtles, for reptiles, for basking. They were kind enough to send one to me, so I'm going to do a quick unboxing of that, and we're going to replace this mercury vapor bulb with the new Zoomed bulb. So let's go take a look at that. Alright, so here we are. We've got the box from Zoomed. Again, this video is not sponsored by Zoomed. However, they were kind enough to send me this light for a video review. This has been sitting around in my basement probably for 3 months. So my apologies to Zoomed for the delay in putting this video together. However, I wanted to do a video focused completely on turtles so that I could do this light justice and really upgrade and revamp the turtle habitat at the same time. Now, this box is actually a PowerSun box. It's just a spare box that they shipped it in. But this is actually the light that I'm currently using, which is the Zoomed PowerSun mercury vapor, self-ballasted mercury vapor UVB bulb. And with basking lights and with turtles, the UVB is the really important part, because we want to make sure that they're getting both UVA and UVB. Now, this is the light we're going to be taking a look at today. It is the PowerSun HID. This is a metal halide bulb, which is really unique. I have never seen a metal halide bulb for reptiles. Metal halides were really popular for reef tanks back in the day, before all the fancy new LEDs started coming out. And I know a lot of people still use metal halides for reef tanks, but this one is specifically designed for turtles and for basking platforms because it creates UVB and heat. So this is a really interesting light which basically replaces your Power Sun mercury vapor bulb with a metal halide bulb. So this Power Sun HID, this is the 70 watt model, and it comes with this fixture, and it also comes with the light itself. So we're gonna pop this open and take a look at what's inside. Now, before we actually open it up, the most important thing to look at when setting this up is the different zones for your reptiles. They're called Ferguson zones. ZoomEd actually has a video on setting this light up so that you can see exactly how much space you need to give between the bottom of your bulb and the start or the top of your basking surface to make sure that you're setting your light an appropriate distance away from your animals. If it's too close to your animals, you can fry your animals, and they might not realize it, and they might, you know, be damaged in the process. So not a good thing. We want to make sure we're in the right zone. For us, we're probably going to be somewhere between the moderate and the high. So we're probably going to set it around 12 to 16 inches, I would say, away. Probably like 14 to 16 inches away from our basking platform, and that should be pretty good. We'll also have to monitor how much heat is coming off of it as well. So anyways, good information on the back of this box, so definitely check that out. And inside it, we have the two products mentioned on the outside, which is the Power Sun 70 watt HID metal halide bulb UVB lamp. Pretty cool, pretty slick. I guess the biggest difference between this and your mercury vapor bulbs is this is designed to be like bright light, like natural looking bright light. Instead of having that yellow warm glow, this is basically like daylight colored, which should probably be better for your animals. It's probably going to be more appealing to look at on camera as well. So that's interesting. So replacing that yellow orange hue that you would normally see in a mercury vapor and getting more of a daylight color. Pretty cool. So here is the fixture itself, the lamp. This is specifically designed for this light, and if you are upgrading your light or if you're getting a light for the first time, make sure if you're using the HID, you've got the HID light, you got the HID fixture, and you've matched up 70 watt, and you'll be all set. So, with all of that being said, let's crack into these things. We got some instructions. We're gonna pull this light out, the fixture out, so we can see what this looks like. I've probably got like a half dozen light fixtures at this point, and I never throw them away because you never know when you're gonna need another one for like a hospital tank, or if you get, you know, baby hatchlings or something like that. So it's always good to have extras. But this is what I'm going to use as my main light moving forward. So this fixture is pretty beefy. As we can see, we've got plenty of room for air ventilation. Nice reflective surface here, and it looks like we've got probably the ballast built into the top here with a nice metal hanging hook, all very high quality. The cord is nice. We got the typical toggle switch that you see on all the lights, and we got the 3-pronged plug. So everything we would want and need out of a fixture. And then let's crack open the light bulb itself. Now I'm kind of curious to see how long these bulbs last for and what the recommendation is on how long they should go before being replaced. I know the biggest downside to the mercury vapor bulbs is that you have to replace them every year because the UVB output is what declines. So hopefully this light lasts, this bulb lasts a lot longer, and we'll just have to test it out and see. Alright, so this is a pretty compact bulb. It actually looks very similar to some of like the outdoor type fixtures you would see, like floodlight type fixtures, but it is a mercury vapor, or a metal halide, sorry, bulb. We're going to screw this bad boy in. We're going to remove our old light and we're going to install this new light in its place. But before we do, we're going to take some temperature readings, and we're also going to get a look at the color of the light before and after we swap this out, so we can do a side-by-side comparison. So that's in there nice and tight, ready to go. So let's swap it out. Alright guys, and here is the Zoomed HID metal halide bulb installed. I had to raise this light up from 12 inches, which is where the previous bulb was, up to about 14 or 16 inches off this basking platform, and I may need to raise it up to 18 inches, just depending on how hot this gets and how much UV actually is hitting this basking spot. Now, before I switched this light out, I did a temperature test right at the basking spot, and the old bulb was measuring 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll have to wait for this to completely warm up to tell exactly how hot this is going to get the basking surface, and from there I will either raise or lower this. Probably raise it. I know metal halides put out quite a bit of heat, so we'll see how directional that heat is. The important part is how bright and how sunny this looks. If we look at this basking spot, this looks like pure daylight, which is such a huge difference compared to the mercury vapor bulb. This looks like the sun hitting this basking spot, which is pretty cool to see. Very different. I've never seen light quite like this with UVA, UVB, and heat. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. Again, I'll have to wait to see what the temperature test comes back at. I did just learn that Zoomed makes a UVB reader, a digital reader, so I'll probably have to pick up one of those and check this over time. Now, the directions did say that these metal halide bulbs should be switched after a year. In a year, I'll come back and test the UV output of this bulb to see whether or not it needs to be replaced or not, and I'll just keep an eye on it from there. But anyways guys, this is the turtle habitat revamped. Pretty excited. We got the GoPro in the water to try to capture some of the turtle movement. Already I've noticed that these turtles have become much more active. Part of it is because they've got a new area to explore because the surroundings have completely changed, but part of it is the fact that they feel a lot more secure coming out, hanging out under all the new cave areas that I've created with all of this Malaysian driftwood. So I would have to say that they're enjoying it. Hopefully tomorrow they'll crawl out and enjoy their new basking light as well. And we'll have to see about putting some plants, some floating plants, back in this tank at some point. Maybe live plants, maybe fake plants. We'll have to see. I do know that when all of those floating plants were in here, the turtles were very happy. They felt very secure, and it is sort of a natural type thing to have in their habitat. But in any case, that is the 300-gallon stock tank with the turtles, cleaned, new light, ready to go for the next 6 months.
Alright guys, and that's gonna do it for this week's video. We had a lot of fun checking out the stock tank, checking out the turtles, cleaning that habitat, putting it back together, adding the new light from Zoomed. Thank you again to Zoomed for sending that light. I think it's going to make a big difference in that habitat. I'm really excited to see the level of heat and UVB that thing puts out over time. Okay, so in next week's video, we've got a lot more to do down here in the fish room. I think the next project is going to be the fry rack, or the betta barracks, whatever you want to call it, the thing that's attached to the wall that has been non-operational for the last year. I'm sick of looking at it completely empty. I want to add tanks back to that rack, and there are a few things that I need to do to make sure that doesn't leak and that it doesn't clog up over time. So we're going to tackle that in next week's video. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you're subscribed, and also check out myaquariumbox.com if you'd like to help support this channel. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.
Do it.